The moment my son threw my suitcase onto the porch, I felt something inside me break. It wasn't just the sound of the latch clicking shut behind me, or the way the rain began to soak through my good Sunday dress. It was the silence, the finality in his eyes, as though the woman who had raised him, fed him, and carried him through life was nothing more than a burden to be discarded. That night 12 years ago was the beginning of my death as a mother. And yet I stand here today telling you this story from a mansion so large that it echoes with every footstep. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't end you, it fuels you. My name is Margaret Williams, though most call me Maggie. I'm 72 years old now, but the scars of that October morning in 2012 have never left me. I had moved in with my son James and his wife Jessica after my husband passed. I was 60, widowed, and lost, clinging to the only family I had left. I helped with their children, paid bills with my social security checks, and convinced myself that love still bound us together. But love, I learned, can be fragile when measured against pride, control, and convenience. "Mom, we need to talk," James had said, his tone colder than I'd ever heard it. Jessica stood behind him, arms crossed, lips twisted into that smug little smile I'd come to dread. I waited for my son to defend me, to remind his wife that I was family, but instead he dropped his gaze as if I were a stranger begging at his door. When I asked where I should go, Jessica's shrug cut me deeper than any knife. "That's not our problem anymore. You're a grown woman. Figure it out." 20 minutes later, my entire life was packed into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. Photographs, keepsakes, 60 years of memories reduced to what I could carry. The rest, Jessica informed me, would be given to Goodwill. I stood there on the porch, the rain dripping from my hair, watching my son, my little boy who once cried when I left him at school, turn his back on me. I wanted to scream, to beg, to remind him of every sacrifice I had made. Instead, I climbed into the waiting taxi, not because I was strong, but because I was broken beyond words. That was the last time I saw them for 12 years. The weeks that followed were hell. I lived in a rundown motel, the kind that smelled of bleach and desperation. Every morning I woke up forgetting where I was, only to have the truth hit me like a hammer. My son had discarded me. My grandchildren's laughter was gone, replaced by the rattle of an old air conditioner. For 6 weeks I survived on cheap, coffee-free library Wi-Fi and the sheer determination not to die invisible. But here's the thing about me: I am not a woman who stays down. When James was a boy, I worked 3 jobs to keep him fed. I cleaned offices at night, sold clothes during the day, and ironed for neighbors on weekends. Survival is stitched into my bones. And slowly, out of the ashes of humiliation, I built something: a job at a garden center, an idea about saving discarded plants, a business, then a company, then an empire. Phoenix Plant Recovery. The irony wasn't lost on me. They had thrown me away, and I built my fortune on proving that nothing discarded is ever truly worthless. Years passed, and I grew stronger, wealthier, more determined than I ever thought possible. By the time I turned 70, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. My net worth was in the millions. My company spanned states, and I had purchased the most expensive estate in Millbrook Heights, a mansion with marble floors, chandeliers, and acres of manicured gardens. A mansion in the very neighborhood James and Jessica used to dream about while driving past in their modest car, fantasizing about a life they would never achieve. And then one morning the doorbell rang. I padded across the marble foyer, my bare feet silent against the stone. Through the security monitor, I saw them: James, older now, with gray streaks in his hair, and Jessica, still polished in designer clothes, but with the edge of desperation in her eyes. Behind them stood 2 teenagers, my children. I had barely known their faces, half familiar, half strangers. 12 years of silence, and they appeared on my doorstep the very day after the local paper announced I was the new owner of the Harrison estate. The timing was so perfect, it was almost laughable. I opened the door, but not the screen. My voice was calm, colder than I ever thought I could be. "Well, well, James, Jessica, children I hardly know, to what do I owe this surprise?" James's voice cracked as he said, "Mom, we wanted to congratulate you." I didn't invite them in. I didn't move from the doorway. I just let the weight of their hypocrisy hang in the air between us. Because I knew, oh, I knew that this wasn't about love. It was about money security, and the sudden realization that the woman they had once thrown away was now living in a world they could only dream of. And I was ready. Ready to remind them of every cruel word, every cold shrug, every day of silence they had forced on me. Ready to let them see the life I had built without them. Ready to show them that betrayal doesn't destroy, it transforms. I stood there in the doorway, the weight of 12 years pressing against my chest, but I kept my face calm. Inside, I could feel the storm of rage and sorrow, the ache of birthdays missed, of grandchildren's hugs stolen from me, of nights spent wondering if James ever regretted what he'd done. But I refused to let them see that weakness. They had seen me broken once. Never again. Jessica stepped forward with that bright, artificial smile that had always hidden her sharp tongue. Maggie, we know things ended badly before, but we've had time to reflect. We realize now that we handled everything wrong back then. I almost laughed. Handled wrong. That was her phrase for betrayal, for cruelty, for shoving a widowed woman onto a porch with nothing but 2 suitcases and rain in her hair. I looked past her to the 2 children standing awkwardly, Emma and Tony. 16 and 14 now strangers, who should have been my heart. Emma's face was cautious, Tony's eyes wide with curiosity. They didn't remember me. Of course they didn't. Jessica had made sure of that. Grandma Maggie Emma spoke, her voice hesitant, searching. Mom and Dad said you used to make the best chocolate chip cookies. Her words pierced me deeper than anything Jessica could have said. She didn't know me, not really. I was just a rumor, a ghost attached to sweets she barely remembered. My voice trembled as I answered, yes, I did. I used to make them every Saturday morning, before I was told I wasn't needed anymore. James shifted uncomfortably. Mom, please, can we come in, just to talk? The audacity of it. After 12 years of silence, after 12 years of ignoring me, after 12 years of pretending I didn't exist, now they wanted to talk. Now that my name was printed in the paper alongside the words Harrison Estate. I studied his face. He looked older, tired, beaten down in ways I hadn't expected. But still, my anger smoldered hotter than my pity. I stepped aside just enough to let them enter. Fine. You want to talk? Let's talk. They followed me into the living room, their eyes darting around the space like hungry thieves. The silk wallpaper, the velvet armchair, the chandelier glistening above all symbols of the life I had built from ashes. Tony rushed to the window, awestruck. Mom, look at the pool, he said. Jessica, meanwhile, was scanning every inch of the room with her calculating eyes, already measuring square footage, already imagining herself in my place. It's certainly spacious, she said smoothly. Much too big for one person. I sank into my armchair, the navy velvet cool against my skin. I like having space to breathe, I replied. My voice was calm, but inside I was seething. James perched on the edge of the sofa, his hands clasped together like a penitent child. Mom. About what happened before. We were under a lot of stress. New mortgage, new jobs, 2 little kids. We didn't handle it well. I leaned forward, my eyes boring into his. So the solution was to throw your widowed mother onto the street. That was your idea of handling stress. Jessica's mask slipped. We thought you'd figure something out. You're independent Maggie. We didn't think you'd end up in some motel. The memory of those nights in that foul-smelling room came rushing back, the cracked ceiling, the whir of a broken air conditioner, the sting of loneliness. I clenched my fists. You never imagined it because you didn't care enough to check. You drove past that motel every day, James. Every single day. You knew where I was, and you never once stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. Emma looked from me to her father, confusion clouding her young face. Dad, what is she talking about? Jessica's voice was sharp, defensive. That's not how it happened, Emma. Your grandmother. She interfered. She undermined us. It wasn't working. I almost laughed at the absurdity. I made your children breakfast. I taught them to say please and thank you. That was my crime. That was what made me unworthy of a home. Tony turned toward his parents, his voice cracking. So you lied. You said Grandma moved away to be near her sister. You told us she didn't want to see us anymore. Emma's face crumpled, her eyes glistening. You told us she chose a new life over us. You made us believe she abandoned us. My throat tightened. I had waited 12 years for this moment for the truth to finally claw its way into the open. I rose from my chair, walking to the window where sunlight spilled across the polished floor. My voice was steady, but inside my heart thundered. No children. I didn't abandon you. I was abandoned by the very people who should have loved me most. James's head hung low, Jessica's face twisted with fury, and the grandchildren, their eyes told me everything. The lies had begun to unravel. Emma's tears shimmered in the light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, her young voice shaking as she turned on her parents. You lied to us. For 6 years you lied. Do you know what that did to us? Do you know what it did to me? Jessica's face hardened, but James looked like a man collapsing under the weight of his own shame. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. No excuse, no defense, just silence. The same silence he gave me 12 years ago when he set my suitcases down on the porch and shut the door. I crossed the room slowly, deliberately, my heels clicking against the marble floor. I pulled a folded piece of paper from a drawer in the side table. You want the truth, I said softly, looking directly at Emma and Tony. Your father once came to see me after he threw me out. He showed up drunk, crying, saying he'd made a terrible mistake. Jessica snapped her head toward James' fury etched into her features. You what? James's face drained of color. Mom, don't! But I already had the letter in my hand, the one he had written in shaky handwriting all those years ago. He begged me not to tell Jessica. Begged me. Because he knew she'd leave him if he admitted he wanted me back. I held the paper up. Would you like me to read it aloud? Emma and Tony's eyes widened, their trust in their parents crumbling faster than I could have imagined. Jessica lunged forward, her voice a hiss. You're lying! You're manipulating them! No, I said firmly, my voice rising for the first time that morning. You manipulated them. You stole 6 years of their childhood from me with your lies. You told them I didn't care, that I left by choice. You rewrote the truth to protect your pride. Emma covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. Tony's jaw clenched, his fists balled at his sides. Dad, he whispered, is it true? Did you really do that? James's voice broke. I made mistakes. We both did. We thought we were doing what was best for our family. Best for your family! My words came out like a lash. You threw your family away. You chose your wife's comfort over your mother's dignity. And now you show up here because you've lost everything, hoping to crawl back into my life. Do you think this house, these walls erase what you did to me? Jessica's mask shattered, the polite smile gone replaced with raw venom. You can't hold this over us forever, Maggie. We're family, you can't just erase us. I stared at her, my voice cold as steel. Watch me. Emma suddenly stood, her voice trembling but strong. I want to stay. I want to hear everything Grandma has to say. I'm tired of the lies. Tony nodded silently, his eyes fixed on me, searching for the pieces of a grandmother he never really knew. Jessica spun towards them, her voice shrill. We're leaving, now! But for the first time, James didn't move. He sat frozen on the sofa, torn between his wife's fury and the truth unraveling before his children. His hands trembled as he rubbed his face. Maybe they should hear it, he whispered. Jessica glared at him, betrayal etched in every line of her face. Don't you dare take her side. I'm not taking anyone's side, James said, his voice hollow. I'm thinking about the kids. The room was thick with tension, the kind that makes it hard to breathe. I stood tall, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. You want to know the truth, children? Sit down. I'll tell you everything, and this time you'll hear it from the woman who lived it, not from the ones who buried it. Emma and Tony sank into the sofa, their eyes wide, waiting. Jessica fumed, pacing like a caged animal. James slumped silent, defeated. And for the first time in 12 long years, I felt the power shift. I was no longer the broken woman on the porch. I was the one holding the truth, the one commanding the room, the one finally seen. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. For years I had carried this story in silence, letting it harden inside me like stone. Now, with my grandchildren watching me with wide, aching eyes, I felt the weight begin to lift, not because it was gone, but because I was finally putting it where it belonged. 6 years ago, I began, my voice low but steady. Your grandfather had just died. I was 60 years old, lost, and trying to find my way forward. Your parents invited me to live with them, while I figured things out. For 3 months, I helped take care of you, contributed my social security checks to household expenses, and tried not to get in the way. I thought we were a family. I thought we were helping each other. Emma's brow furrowed. Tony leaned forward, hanging on my every word. James closed his eyes, already knowing where this was going. Then one morning, your mother decided I was too set in my ways. She told me to leave, immediately. And your father, my son, packed my belongings into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box. He put them on the porch. He didn't defend me. He didn't fight for me. He just let me go. The silence in the room was suffocating. Jessica broke it first, her tone sharp, brittle. That's not the whole story. You undermined us. You confused the children about who was in charge. I let out a bitter laugh. I made you breakfast, I said softly. I asked you to say please and thank you. If that's undermining, then perhaps the problem wasn't me. Tony's voice cracked. But where did you go? The memory still clawed at me even now. I lived in a cheap motel for 6 weeks, the kind that smelled of bleach and broken dreams. I woke up every morning thinking my life was over. But it wasn't. I found a job at a garden center saving plants everyone else thought were dead. And do you know what happened? I gestured around the room, the chandeliers glittering, the velvet armchairs glowing in the afternoon light. I built this. I built a business from nothing. I built a life they told me I wasn't capable of having. I built an empire out of the ashes of their betrayal. Jessica scoffed, her mask of politeness now completely gone. So what? You're still bitter. You've held on to this grudge for 12 years, just so you could throw it in our faces. No, I replied, my voice cold, final. I've held on to it because it's the truth. You don't get to rewrite history just because the ending doesn't suit you. Emma's tears slid down her cheeks as she turned to her parents. You told us she didn't want to see us anymore. You made us believe she abandoned us. How could you do that? James's voice cracked. We thought it would be easier for you, easier than knowing the truth, easier for who I snapped, for them or for you. Jessica rose abruptly, her eyes flashing with fury. This is ridiculous. We came here to make peace, and all you want to do is drag up the past. We're your family, Maggie. You can't just shut us out. I straightened my hands, resting on the velvet armchair like it was a throne. Family is supposed to protect you. Family is supposed to stand by you when the world falls apart. You are not my family, you are the people who betrayed me. And now you want to move into my home because you've ruined your own lives. Emma looked at me, her voice trembling but strong. Grandma, do you even want a relationship with us, with me and Tony? Her question pierced me like a blade. My chest ached with longing, with the years I had lost, with the memories we should have made. My voice softened. I want a relationship with you, with Tony. You are innocent in all of this. But your parents... My eyes hardened as I turned to James and Jessica. They will have to earn their way back into my life if they ever can. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the ticking of the antique clock on the mantel. Jessica's lips curled in a sneer. Fine. If you won't help us, if you won't forgive us, then don't expect us to come back. I smiled a calm, cold smile. I don't. Emma and Tony looked between us, torn but resolute. For the first time, I saw it, the shift. They didn't trust their parents' words anymore. They saw me not as the ghost they'd been told about, but as flesh and blood. And for the first time in 12 years, I felt something close to justice. Jessica's heels clicked furiously against the marble floor as she marched toward the door, muttering curses under her breath. James hesitated, torn between following his wife and staying rooted to the place where his children sat, eyes fixed on me like they were seeing me for the first time. Emma crossed her arms, chin trembling, but defiant. I'm not leaving, not until I hear everything. Tony nodded, his young face pale but determined. Me too. Jessica spun around, her voice shrill, slicing through the air. We are leaving, now! But James finally spoke, his voice quiet, weary, and broken. Jess, maybe they should stay. Maybe they need to know. Jessica whirled on him, eyes blazing with betrayal. Don't you dare take her side. I'm not, he whispered, though. Even he didn't believe it. I'm taking theirs. His eyes flicked to his children, then to me. For a fleeting second, I thought I saw the boy I once raised, the boy who clung to me when his father abandoned us. But the man before me was weaker, worn down by years of pride and cowardice. Jessica's fury boiled over. Fine. Stay here with your precious mother. But don't expect me to be part of this circus. She stormed out, slamming the heavy oak door so hard the chandelier trembled. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint sound of Emma's sniffles. James sat back down, his head in his hands. I don't even know who I am anymore, he muttered. I let his words hang there because this wasn't about him anymore. It was about the two young souls sitting on my velvet sofa, robbed of a grandmother for 12 long years. I reached out, taking Emma's hand in one of mine, Tony's in the other. My voice softened, trembling with the weight of everything I had lost. I never stopped loving you. Not for one day. I thought of you every birthday, every Christmas, every time I saw children your age at the park. I prayed you'd know somehow that I hadn't abandoned you. Emma sobbed openly now, clutching my hand. I thought you didn't want us, that you chose to leave. No, darling, I was thrown away. Just like one of those plants everyone thought was dead. But you see, I came back stronger. And I built all of this not out of hate, but out of the stubborn belief that I was worth more than the way they treated me. Tony's young voice was small but steady. Can we still come see you, even if they don't? Tears blurred my vision as I pulled both of them into my arms. Anytime. This house, my life, my heart, it will always have room for you. James looked up, his face wet, his voice barely a whisper. Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know how to fix what I did. I met his eyes, and for once I didn't see him as my son, but as a man who had made his choices and would have to live with them. You can start by telling them the truth. Not your version, not Jessica's, the truth. And then maybe one day we'll talk about forgiveness. But you'll have to earn that. Both of you. He nodded, broken, defeated. That evening, after they left, Jessica fuming, James silent, Emma and Tony promising to return, I stood at the tall window of my mansion, the town spread out below me. 12 years ago I had been cast out like garbage. Now I looked down on the very people who had looked down on me. Not with cruelty, not with smugness, but with a deep, unshakable satisfaction. Justice had finally come full circle. And in that moment, I understood the lesson life had been carving into me all along. Being discarded doesn't make you worthless. Sometimes it sets you free. Sometimes it gives you the space to grow roots deeper than anyone imagined. And sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting or fighting, it's living so fully, so fiercely, that the people who tried to bury you have no choice but to watch you bloom. So if you've ever been betrayed, abandoned, or made to feel like you don't matter, hear me. You are not defined by the people who turned their backs on you. You are defined by what you build when they're gone. Thank you for listening to my story. If it moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that remind us we are stronger than our pain. And please leave a comment. Tell me what betrayal you've overcome. Your story might be the light someone else needs.